Welcome to Book Buzz Reviews and Summaries. What is happiness? Is it a fleeting emotion, something to be chased but never fully grasped? Or is it an enduring state, lying hidden beneath the surface of our endlessly busy lives? As human beings, we often approach happiness as though it were a prize at the end of a journey, a destination reached through success, relationships, wealth, or self-improvement. But despite our relentless striving, we often find ourselves dissatisfied, wondering why the contentment we long for remains elusive. In The Meaning of Happiness, Alan W. Watts challenges the Western world's ingrained notions of happiness and turns the question on its head. Rather than searching for happiness as something external to us, Watts invites us to reconsider our relationship with life itself. Could it be that true happiness lies not in the act of achieving, possessing, or controlling, but in the art of letting go? Could it be that the freedom we seek is already within us, waiting to be realized, not by force, but by understanding? From the very first page, Watts draws us into a dialogue that feels both timeless and urgent. With his unique ability to bridge the wisdom of Eastern philosophy with the insights of modern psychology, he presents a vision of happiness that transcends the shallow, materialistic ideals of contemporary society. He asks us to look beyond the surface distractions and dive into the deeper currents of our existence, where the spirit yearns for something richer, freer, and more profound. Imagine, for a moment, that you are standing at the edge of a vast ocean. The waves crash and churn, endlessly rising and falling. At first glance, the movement seems chaotic, almost overwhelming. But if you look closer, you'll notice a rhythm, a balance, a harmony beneath the surface turbulence. Life, what suggests, is much like this ocean. On the surface, we are caught in the ceaseless ebb and flow of desires, fears, and expectations. Yet beneath it all lies a profound stillness, a truth that cannot be grasped, but only experienced. This book is not a self-help manual, nor is it a prescriptive path to follow. Instead, it is a philosophical exploration, a conversation that gently nudges us toward deeper self-awareness. Watts does not claim to have all the answers, but he does offer us tools to ask the right questions, questions that peel back the layers of illusion and bring us closer to the essence of what it means to live freely and fully. Happiness, according to Watts, cannot be achieved by clinging to rigid ideals or pursuing endless goals. In fact, the very act of striving for happiness often pushes it further away. Much of our dissatisfaction, he explains, stems from a fundamental misunderstanding: the belief that happiness is something to be possessed rather than something to be experienced. This misunderstanding leads us to live in a perpetual state of tension, always reaching for the future while neglecting the present. But what if happiness is not a destination at all? What if it is a way of being, a state of flow that arises naturally when we let go of the need to control? Drawing from the teachings of Taoism, Buddhism, and Vedantic philosophy, Watts introduces us to the idea of living in harmony with the flow of life. This harmony does not mean passivity or resignation. Rather, it is an active engagement with life as it is, free from the distortions of fear, resistance, and attachment. One of the most striking themes in the book is Watts' critique of modern psychology's approach to happiness. While Western psychology often focuses on identifying and fixing problems, whether through therapy, medication, or self-analysis, Watts suggests that this problem-solving mindset may itself be part of the issue. By viewing our emotions and experiences as obstacles to overcome, we create a cycle of resistance that only deepens our suffering. True freedom, he argues, comes not from solving every problem, but from shifting our perspective. In Eastern traditions, there is a profound emphasis on the interconnectedness of all things. Watts draws upon this wisdom to challenge the Western notion of the isolated self, the idea that we are separate, independent beings navigating a world out there. This sense of separation, he argues, is the root of much of our unhappiness. When we see ourselves as disconnected from the whole, we become trapped in fear, insecurity, and the constant need to prove our worth. But what if we are not separate at all? What if we are, in fact, inseparable from the universe, just as a wave is inseparable from the ocean? This realization, what explains, is at the heart of true happiness. It is a freedom that arises not from gaining control, but from surrendering to the flow of life itself. It is a happiness that cannot be taken away because it is not dependent on external circumstances. It is simply the natural state of being when we align with the rhythms of existence. Watts also speaks to the paradox of happiness. The more we chase it, the more elusive it becomes. This paradox is beautifully illustrated in his discussion of the law of reversed effort, a concept rooted in Zen philosophy. The harder we try to hold on to happiness, the more it slips through our fingers like sand grasped too tightly. Happiness, what reminds us, is not something we can force or manufacture. It arises naturally when we stop trying to manipulate life and instead learn to trust its unfolding. In this sense, the meaning of happiness is not about finding quick fixes or escaping life's challenges. Watts acknowledges that suffering is an inevitable part of the human experience. But he also shows us that our relationship with suffering can change. By embracing life's impermanence and accepting the full spectrum of our emotions, we can find a deeper, more enduring sense of peace. As the book unfolds, Watts weaves together philosophy, psychology, and personal insight with his characteristic clarity and wit. He invites us to question our assumptions, confront our fears, and rediscover the joy that comes from simply being alive. Whether he is discussing the nature of the self, the pitfalls of materialism, or the wisdom of ancient traditions, his words resonate with a timeless truth. Happiness is not something we find outside of ourselves. It is a state of harmony that emerges when we align with the flow of life. To read the meaning of happiness is to embark on a journey, not a journey to a distant land or a future ideal, but a journey inward, to the heart of what it means to be human. It is a journey that challenges us to let go of our illusions and rediscover the freedom that has been within us all along. And as Watts gently reminds us, this freedom is not something we must earn or achieve. It is simply the birthright of the spirit, waiting to be realized in the present moment. By the end of this opening chapter, you may find yourself pausing, reflecting, and perhaps even smiling at the simplicity of it all. Happiness, as Watts reveals, is not a grand secret or a hidden treasure. It is the quiet, unshakable joy of being fully alive, fully present, and fully free. And in that realization lies the profound beauty of life itself. Introduction. Happiness beyond the surface. Watts opens by challenging conventional definitions of happiness. In modern society, happiness is often perceived as the absence of discomfort, the fulfillment of desires, or the accumulation of wealth and accomplishments. Yet, these definitions, he argues, are shallow and unsustainable. He points to the paradox of material progress. While we have advanced technologically, psychological suffering remains prevalent. Watts introduces readers to the idea that happiness requires a shift in perception rather than a change in external circumstances. Drawing from his broad expertise, he outlines the themes to come, integrating Western psychology's insights into the human mind with the spiritual traditions of the East, which offer profound teachings on inner freedom. Chapter 1. The Illusion of the Ego. The illusion of the ego, Watts argues, is the cornerstone of human dissatisfaction. He unpacks the Western notion of the self as an isolated entity, distinct from the external world. This idea, central to individualism, fosters a deep sense of alienation. We see ourselves as separate from others, striving for self-preservation in a competitive world. Eastern thought dismantles this illusion. In Hinduism's Advaita, Vedanta, and Buddhism's teachings on anatta, non-self, the self is not an isolated entity, but a part of a greater whole. Watts employs metaphors to make this concept accessible. Just as a wave is inseparable from the ocean, so too is the individual inseparable from the universe. This realization, he argues, dissolves the barriers of ego, opening the door to a profound sense of interconnectedness. Watts invites readers to contemplate their own sense of self. Is your identity rooted in fixed characteristics, or is it a fluid, ever-changing interplay of experiences? By questioning the ego, we begin to loosen its grip and make room for a deeper understanding of happiness. Chapter 2. The Trap of Pursuing Pleasure. In this chapter, Watts critiques the modern obsession with pleasure as the path to happiness. Society equates contentment with the attainment of pleasurable experiences, yet this pursuit often leads to discontent. Watts explains how this hedonic treadmill traps us in a cycle. We achieve one desire only to find ourselves craving the next. Drawing parallels with Buddhist teachings, Watts introduces the Four Noble Truths, particularly the idea that craving, or tanha, is the root of suffering. He suggests that the relentless pursuit of pleasure blinds us to the fleeting beauty of the present moment. Instead of clinging to pleasure or fearing pain, Watts proposes a middle path, one that embraces the transient nature of all experiences. He further challenges the reader. What happens when we stop chasing? Can we find joy in the simple, unremarkable moments of life? These questions are pivotal to understanding how happiness can arise from within, independent of external circumstances. Chapter 3. Freedom through Acceptance. The human tendency to resist unpleasant experiences is a major obstacle to happiness. Watts draws on Taoism to explore the concept of wu wei, or effortless action, which emphasizes flowing with life rather than fighting against it. Resistance, he argues, creates tension and suffering, while acceptance opens the door to peace. He offers practical examples. When faced with pain, be it physical or emotional, our instinct is to fight it, which often amplifies the suffering. Instead, Watts suggests observing pain without judgment, allowing it to arise and pass like a wave. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation. It means seeing things as they are and responding with clarity rather than reactivity. This chapter invites readers to practice acceptance in their daily lives, whether it's dealing with a challenging situation or embracing the uncertainty of the future. By accepting life's inherent unpredictability, we free ourselves from the futile quest for control. Chapter 4. The Wisdom of Insecurity. Insecurity, Watts asserts, is an inevitable aspect of life. We cling to routines, relationships, and possessions in an attempt to create stability, yet the very nature of existence is impermanent. This paradox, seeking security in an insecure world, creates anxiety. Watts turns to Zen Buddhism to offer an alternative perspective. Rather than fearing insecurity, we can embrace it as a natural part of life. He encourages readers to cultivate a mindset of curiosity and openness, seeing each moment as an opportunity for growth. Insecurity, when reframed, becomes not a source of fear, but a doorway to freedom. He illustrates this with the analogy of tightrope walking. Balance is achieved not by holding still, but by constantly adjusting to movement. Similarly, life's uncertainties require flexibility and presence, qualities that foster true happiness. Chapter 5. Love Beyond Possession. Watts presents love as a fundamental aspect of human experience, yet one that is often misunderstood. Conditional love, rooted in expectations and attachments, can lead to disappointment and pain. Unconditional love, on the other hand, is selfless and liberating. Drawing on the Christian concept of agape and the Buddhist principle of compassion, Watts argues that love is not about possessing or controlling another person, but about recognizing their inherent worth and interconnectedness. He challenges readers to examine their own relationships. Are they based on mutual respect and freedom, or on the need to fill a void within? Watts also explores the role of self-love. emphasizing that we cannot truly love others until we cultivate compassion for ourselves. By dissolving the ego and embracing our shared humanity, we can experience love as a state of being rather than a transactional exchange. Chapter 6. Embracing Duality. Life's dualities, light and dark, joy and sorrow, life and death, are often seen as opposing forces. What reframes them as complementary aspects of a unified whole. He introduces the concept of yin-yang, illustrating how opposites exist in dynamic harmony. This understanding, Watts argues, allows us to move beyond the futile quest for constant happiness. Instead of clinging to one side of life's dualities, we can embrace the totality of existence. By doing so, we transcend the fear of loss and the need for control, finding peace in the ebb and flow of life. Chapter 7. Meditation as a Path to Presence. Meditation, Watts explains, is not about achieving a particular state of mind, but about cultivating awareness. Through mindfulness, we learn to observe thoughts and emotions without attachment, creating space for clarity and insight. Watts introduces practical techniques, such as focusing on the breath and grounding oneself in the present moment. He emphasizes that meditation is not an escape from reality, but a way to engage with it more fully. In the stillness of meditation, we can glimpse the interconnectedness of all things and experience the peace that comes from letting go of the ego. Chapter 8. Bridging East and West. This chapter serves as a synthesis of Watts' ideas, exploring how the insights of Eastern spirituality and Western psychology can complement each other. While the West excels in scientific inquiry and innovation, the East offers profound wisdom on the nature of the mind and spirit. Watts envisions a future where these traditions merge, creating a holistic approach to human well-being. He calls on readers to embrace both perspectives, integrating the analytical with the intuitive, the practical with the spiritual. Chapter 9. Letting Go of Control. The art of letting go is central to Watts' philosophy. He invites readers to release their attachments, not only to material possessions, but also to identities, expectations, and the illusion of control. By surrendering to life's flow, we discover a profound sense of freedom and joy. Watts reassures readers that letting go does not mean passivity. On the contrary, it allows us to engage with life more fully, unburdened by fear and resistance. This chapter offers a powerful reminder that happiness is not something we achieve, but something we uncover by aligning with the natural rhythms of existence. Chapter 10. The Meaning of Happiness. In this chapter, Watts talks about redefining happiness as a state of harmony with the universe. It is not found in fleeting pleasures or external achievements, but in the simple act of being present. By embracing life's impermanence, dissolving the ego, and cultivating acceptance, we can experience a profound sense of peace and fulfillment. Watts leaves readers with a call to action, to live with curiosity, compassion, and an open heart. Happiness, he reminds us, is not a destination but a journey, a way of being that is available to us in every moment. Chapter 11. The Art of Seeing the World as It Is. Watts delves into a core teaching of Eastern philosophy, perceiving the world without the filters of judgment, attachment, or preconceptions. He explains how much of human dissatisfaction arises from the way we interpret reality rather than reality itself. In the West, we often label experiences as good or bad, creating unnecessary emotional turbulence. However, Watts proposes that a state of happiness arises naturally when we let go of these judgments. Referencing Zen Buddhism, he introduces the practice of Shoshin, or beginner's mind, which encourages seeing life with fresh eyes, free from habitual patterns of thought. He recounts how meditation and mindfulness can help individuals strip away these mental layers, allowing them to see life in its raw, unfiltered state. By cultivating this clarity, people can release unnecessary suffering and find profound joy in the ordinary. What encourages readers to practice this shift in perspective daily? Whether it's observing the natural world, engaging in conversations, or simply experiencing mundane tasks. The chapter challenges readers to question, are you truly seeing reality, or are you trapped in your conditioned perceptions? Chapter 12. Happiness through non-attachment. In this chapter, Watts examines one of the most difficult yet liberating concepts, non-attachment. He explains how clinging to desires, people, or outcomes leads to suffering. This idea, rooted in the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism, asserts that happiness arises not from getting what we want, but from learning to let go of the need for things to be a certain way. Drawing from the Bhagavad Gita, Watts highlights the principle of acting without attachment to the fruits of action. He explores how focusing on the present task, rather than obsessing over its outcome, fosters a sense of freedom and peace. He likens this to the flow state described in modern psychology, where individuals lose themselves in the process and experience true contentment. To make non-attachment relatable, Watts uses everyday examples. Releasing the fear of failure at work, the need for constant validation in relationships, or the anxiety over future uncertainties. Letting go, he argues, doesn't mean indifference, but a profound trust in the flow of life. Chapter 13. The Role of Suffering in Happiness. Rather than viewing suffering as an obstacle to happiness, Watts presents it as an integral part of the human experience. He explains that attempts to avoid or suppress pain often lead to deeper dissatisfaction. By contrast, embracing suffering with curiosity and acceptance allows individuals to transform it into wisdom and resilience. He draws comparisons between the Western psychological concept of post-traumatic growth and the Buddhist practice of Tonglen, in which individuals breathe in suffering and breathe out compassion. Through these practices, Watts suggests that pain can deepen one's capacity for empathy, gratitude, and love. The chapter also touches on how Eastern teachings encourage us to transcend the duality of happiness and suffering. In Zen, the recognition that joy and sorrow are two sides of the same coin allows us to face life with equanimity. Watts urges readers to explore this balance in their own lives, asking, how can your greatest challenges become opportunities for growth and understanding? Chapter 14. Playfulness as the Key to Liberation. Watts introduces the concept of Lila, the divine play of the universe in Hindu philosophy, to illustrate how life's purpose is not to achieve or accumulate, but to play. He critiques the Western tendency to approach life as a series of goals, tasks, and achievements, arguing that this perspective robs us of spontaneity and joy. Children, Watts observes, embody a sense of playfulness that adults often lose. They live in the moment, unburdened by the weight of past regrets or future anxieties. Reclaiming this sense of play, he argues, is essential to happiness. The chapter invites readers to approach life with a sense of curiosity, humor, and lightheartedness. Watts explains that when we take ourselves less seriously and see life as a dance rather than a struggle, we free ourselves from unnecessary stress. Chapter 15. Harmony between thought and intuition. Watts explores the tension between analytical thinking, which dominates Western psychology, and intuition, which is celebrated in Eastern traditions. While rational thought is a valuable tool, he argues that over-reliance on it can disconnect us from the deeper, more instinctual aspects of our being. Eastern practices like meditation, Tai Chi, and yoga encourage individuals to quiet the mind and access a state of intuitive awareness. Watts likens this to the creative process, where artists, writers, and musicians often describe moments of inspiration as flowing from beyond the conscious mind. The chapter emphasizes the need to balance thought with intuition, logic with feeling, and planning with spontaneity. By integrating these aspects, we can live more harmoniously and authentically. Chapter 16. The Dance of Life and Death. Watts confronts one of humanity's greatest fears, death. He explains how Western culture often avoids discussions of mortality, creating a collective anxiety around the inevitable. In contrast, Eastern philosophies view death as a natural part of the cycle of life, akin to the changing of seasons. Drawing from Zen Buddhism and Taoism, Watts illustrates how accepting the impermanence of life can lead to profound peace. When we stop clinging to the illusion of permanence, whether it's our possessions, relationships, or even our identity, we open ourselves to the beauty of each fleeting moment. Watts uses metaphors to demystify death, describing it as a return to the infinite, much like a drop of water merging back into the ocean. He encourages readers to reflect on their own mortality, not as a source of fear, but as a reminder to live fully and authentically. Chapter 17. The Interplay of Eastern and Western Wisdom. In this penultimate chapter, Watts synthesizes the teachings of Eastern spirituality and Western psychology. He acknowledges the strengths of both traditions. The West's focus on individuality and progress, and the East's emphasis on interconnectedness and inner peace. By integrating these perspectives, he envisions a holistic approach to happiness. Watts encourages readers to adopt a flexible mindset, embracing the analytical tools of Western thought while cultivating the spiritual practices of the East. He offers practical suggestions for bridging these worlds, such as combining mindfulness meditation with cognitive behavioral therapy or exploring the philosophy of Taoism alongside Western science. Chapter 18. Living the Wisdom of Happiness. Watts concludes with a call to action, urging readers to embody the principles discussed throughout the book. Happiness, he reminds us, is not a destination but a way of being, a state of harmony with the ever-changing flow of life. He encourages readers to practice mindfulness, embrace impermanence, and let go of ego-driven desires. By doing so, they can uncover a deeper, more enduring sense of joy. Watts leaves readers with a parting thought. True happiness is not something we achieve, but something we realize by aligning with the natural rhythms of existence. Read the book to learn more. If you are liking the series, please subscribe and press the like button. Thank you.